So, well, thank you for having me first, for having us, also the ghost of Fabio Cavallari here. We are Barena Bianca, and we started working 3 years ago, just out of desperation, basically, because we wanted to stay in Venice, but as many people, when they end their studies, it's very hard to be here and do something you don't absolutely hate. So either you end up feeling welcome in your place or having to leave. And we were searching for a way of showing that, and showing that we're not the only unwanted living beings of Venice. And also, like, we're searching for a metaphor to show the entanglement of humans and non-humans, such as these beautiful seaweeds. And we happened, thanks to Elena Mazzi, we did a workshop centered around the ecosystem of the lagoon, and we found the metaphor of the salt marsh, the local salt marsh, the Barena, that declined of 70% in the 20th century, while at the same time the human population of the central Venice declined of 70%. And it's, of course, not exactly the same reasons, but it's broadly connected. So it's basically the shift of the economy of the city towards something that is not local, and the digging of the Canale dei Petroli, the petroleum channel, that was arguably not inevitable, but was made and changed dramatically the ecosystem of the south of the lagoon, while the ecosystem of Venice human town got broadly shifted with services declining and so on. So at some point we thought, we're all salt marshes, right? And so that's how it started.
So it's incredible you did this project where you literally wore the salt marshes in the center to this t-shirt. What was that project about?
That was a project about anti-camouflage, which is, well, we like to play with the languages of advertising and fashion, arguably being two of the least cool people in the Venetian art world. And so we wanted to do a advertising campaign, like the one you see at the Ponte dei Sospiri or here in Zattere, very big Louis Vuitton advertisements. So we decided to... The problem in the 20th century was that both the Venetians and the salt marsh were so invisible, so no one cared about them because they were hard to see. So we said, okay, we should render it visible, just as the Louis Vuitton model there. No one's going to ignore him, so why we're getting ignored? So we realized some artworks that were shirts, they still exist, with the shapes of the salt marshes of Campalto, which are the only ones that you can actually walk on without needing a boat. And we realized these two shirts and started dressing up like salt marsh fishermen, just trying to blend in with the tourist crowd, and that of course was absurd, and that was the anti-camouflage, so just striving to be impossible to ignore. And yeah, there was an advertising campaign for not disappearing, basically.
I absolutely love that. And then similarly you had a project in a public space where you had posters that were also sort of visually explaining the colors, and then also connected to the scientific research that you did on the salt marshes.
Yeah, then that project was called Attenzione, so attention in Venetian, and that's what if you occupy the public street in Venice, you're gonna hear it a lot, because all the cart pushers will shout at you for just remove yourself of the way, and they will shout attention. And that was a call for attention on other issues. There was, there's a lot of data being published on the erosion of the salt marshes and the decline of the Venetian population and the increase of the floods that are three very interconnected problems. And that was, we developed a software that translates into visual data, so in color, basically a gradient, scientific data, and the data was actually published by the municipality itself, mostly. And we thought we got this show curated by Microclima in the Serre dei Giardini, and it was called Supermercato. And we thought that, at supermarkets you get advertisement a lot, and what needed advertisement in that occasion, just in front of the Giardini, was the trends of what's happening in Venice that many visitors of the Biennale don't see, because they come here, they're here for 4 days. Maybe they see a flood and they think that it's a good idea to take photos of it because it's so charismatic and unique, but they don't get the dramatic aspect of it, the long term. So we paired the data of depopulation, erosion, and flood increase with the quotes by historical thinkers and poets about Venice and about what it means for the world, and like for example Nietzsche, who was saying that Venice is a warning from the future for the man of the present, and that was aimed to show the inhabitants of Castello that some artists care about this place, and the other one was to show the visitors of the Biennale something about the environment they were in. And that was Attenzione, and that got removed very swiftly by the town hall, but that also shows that it was kind of successful, I guess. That was visible for sure.
And it's also interesting because I think your connection between human and non-human agents in the city, and how one is connected with each other. If one declines, it's also directly connected to this decline of citizens, that the place is becoming less and less inhabited because the nature, like the marshes, are actually leaving it. What do you think in the future? I mean, that's a very hard question to put, but what is some realistic actions to be taken to ensure not only the survival of the local community, but also of this ecosystem, in a sense?
It's a hard question.
Yeah, I mean it's more of an open question.
Oh, yeah,
if you could be involved in a solution, how would you address that?
So I guess that to search a solution you need to go in to look at the reasons, and the reason why both the marshes and the humans of Venice disappeared is that the environment was made unhospitable for them, for trying to maximize the profit and not looking at the care of the ecosystem. Because of course Venice, not meaning the Venetians but someone in Venice, made a lot of money out of the digging of the canal, and having the harbor in Marghera so active brought a lot of wealth to many people, and some wealth to a lot of workers. And to be fair, we don't need to forget that a lot of people work in that industry, so we need to be solidarity needs to go towards them. Even when we think about banishing the ships from the lagoon, you need to think ecosystemically, ecosystem as your house, so I guess that when making those choices in the 60s, there was not so much ecological awareness, but the big bad part was that the profits were not shared, either economically or ecosystemically. Literally, the marshes could not speak. They could not do demonstrations. They could not say, don't do this because we want to live here and you're destroying it for us. The Venetians arguably did a lot, and they're still doing it. Broadly being ignored but recently having very big victories, as we know. So I guess that, and we also saw that the ecosystem can regenerate itself quite fast if given the chance. The banish of the big ships, the cruise ships from the lagoon, it didn't happen yet because they're still here, as we will see in a couple of weeks. But is a good sign of caring about the ecosystem. The Italian constitution says that you need to protect the landscape, but not the ecosystem. But arguably, the salt marsh were a landscape, and you can't take the two apart. So if I was a member of the people who have awards in it, I would take into consideration the many proposals that were made by people, by the many people who care about the lagoon during the many years that passed, and to trust into the possibility of regenerating an ecosystem if only you can guarantee the nourishment and the care for it. So for the salt marshes, to cut erosion, to make sure that the waves are not so high and the acidity is not so high and that the lagoon doesn't become a piece of the sea. And for the humans, you should really take care of them having a easier life in Venice and a place where to live and a place where to thrive, because there's many people who want to live in Venice, so just care about them and not about the people who would just to stay here for 2 days and leave, because they can come anyway, most of them. And that's it.
Thank you so much. Also, thank you for taking the time. I'm really excited to see your next project and to continue this conversation. Yeah, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.